Hello, it's my very great pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of To a New Dawn, Letters of Solidarity, a brand new anthology written and edited almost exclusively by young people from Nottingham. Please do jump into the chat room and let us know who you are and where you are zooming in from. If you have a question for any of our guest speakers and contributors tonight, please post your questions in the Q&A box that you can see along the bottom of your screens, and we'll pick those questions up later on. My name is Sandeep Mahal, and I head up Nottingham's prestigious UNESCO designation and City of Literature charity. We share the UNESCO City of Literature designation with only 38 other UNESCO cities of literature across the world, the likes of Barcelona, Buchan, Dublin, Dunedin, Durban, Manchester and Seattle, to name just a few. Our mission as a UNESCO City of Literature is to build a better world with words. And our vision is for a city where everyone is reading and writing their way to a better life. We believe reading and writing are two of the most powerful tools we have for lifting young people out of poverty. And so we work really hard to inspire and educate young people through literature to improve their life chances. The core mission of our creative writing and reading projects are, of course, an educational and artistic one. We commission Nottingham writers and poets to creatively engage with young people through our community projects, campaigns and events. And we offer unique opportunities to meet, to share, to learn, cooperate, build relationships and stay connected. Our literature projects can be extraordinary agents of change, and this anthology is an act of solidarity, capturing a singular moment in history and reflecting the irrepressible spirit of youth, a strong belief in a better future, and a desire to spearhead change. The letters contained in this anthology reflect back on a challenging year for us all. But it was particularly difficult for young people whose lives were suddenly changed in some really fundamental ways. But schools, colleges, universities, and the arts and cultural sector have in so many ways responded with great ingenuity and creativity to the unprecedented demands of COVID-19. At Nottingham City of Literature, we adapted to shutdowns by swapping our physical spaces for virtual ones, broadcasting our events to over 2,500 people from all over the world. But our most profound and moving project came in the form of Letters of Solidarity. We are deeply grateful to receive funding from our friends at Arts Council England, Nottingham Castle Trust, Nottingham Trent University, the Thomas Farr Charity and the Challenge Partnership. With their funding and support, we created the Letters of Solidarity writing project, and the resulting anthology is a collection of over 40 heartfelt letters written during those difficult times, but also helped young people to process the pandemic, to make sense of the protests that followed the murder of George Floyd, of the subsequent conversations about racism and inequality on both sides of the Atlantic. They also talk about isolation and the loss of loved ones that so many young people sadly experienced. Many of the young people featured in this anthology have expressed their concerns about the environment and the prospect of unemployment. We received letters about depression, loneliness, and the healing power of FaceTime with friends. All the letters are a reminder of how precious time is. As a young girl growing up in libraries, I witnessed the creation of safe spaces. And so it was really important to me to find new ways of creating safe spaces during these difficult times for young people to express themselves with the support, trust, and encouragement of each other and from our brilliant writers and poets, including Pania Banjoko, Ione Smallhorn, and Eve Makis, who we will hear from a little later on. As we emerge from the other side of the pandemic, the need for libraries as safe spaces is now more important and sheds light on how these spaces really belong to us all. Library spaces should be a reflection of our communities and spaces which encourage, celebrate, explore, and give us the courage to question ourselves and the world we live in. And our literature projects can really enable activism in quiet as well as radical ways to resist and make change. But this can only happen in safe spaces amongst people who are empowered to contribute towards our collective future, to make a real difference and help build a better world with words. You'll find all that passion, empathy, humour and wise words in this brand new anthology, and we are delighted to have a number of young voices with us this evening to celebrate. So, to explain how this event is going to work, I will shortly hand over to Leanne Moden, our wonderful creative engagement coordinator, to hit the button and introduce an exclusive animation. We'll then hear from our young writers and editors, plus readings from a few familiar Nottingham faces and a special discussion with Eve Makis, chief editor of this anthology. So let's get started, shall we? Over to you, Leanne.
Hello everyone, and thank you Sandeep for that brilliant introduction. So yes, first up, what we'd like to do is introduce two fantastic videos which were produced by students from Nottingham Trent University in celebration of the Letters of Solidarity project. The first video was produced by Trinity, Connie, Sophie and Orla, and the second video was created by Margareta, Zuzanna and Sophie. Take it away. Thank you. Thank you to Trinity, to Connie, to Sophie, to Orla, to Margareta, Zuzanna and Sophie for those beautiful animations. Next up, I'm really excited to introduce a video featuring some of the letters in the collection. So thank you to the contributors in this first portion, Mcdonald Smith and Teo Eve, and also thank you to volunteers Emily Sanderson, Darren Simpson and Georgina Wilding, who are reading some of their favourite letters from the collection. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Dan Mcdonald Smith. I'm a medical student in Nottingham, and I wanted to share with you my letter to my unborn son. To my unborn son, I wake up in the mornings, frosty and cold. Where did the night go? I rub my eyes. It doesn't help. Never does. I'm still tired, vision blurry. I put on my glasses. Better. I fumble for the lamplight. A warm orange glow. Just enough to function, but careful not to disturb your mum. She's snoring, you're kicking. I can feel your thumps as I whisper good morning to my little man. I rip off my PJs and pull up my work slacks. The cold was never my friend. I remind myself there are more lives to save. I stuff lunch into my rucksack bag and make a mental note to thank Mum for making it when I get home. Automatically, I tip cornflakes into an old chip bowl and splash milk. I munch and prepare. Joints stiff, brain still foggy. What now? Shirt. I button up my shirt in reverence. This is my uniform. I don my NHS lanyard and I slide on my grandpa's old Clarks. Comfiest shoes you ever did know. I hope he'd be proud. Management plans for my patients slowly edge to the fore. I'm fond of them. I hate to see them admitted, but I love to see them leave. I pray I can help reunite more with their families today. Grasping the doorknob, I boldly step across the threshold, demarcating my flat and the outside world. At home, I'm Daniel, a husband and expectant father. I love to goof off, and dad jokes come naturally. But as I look up, seeing only the stars pinpricking the pitch blackness, out here, I'm a medical student, the gravitas of which sometimes feels too heavy. The keys fumble in my numb fingers. I promise myself one day I'll buy a car with remote locking. Folded into the car, the engine brums to life. Cooed by the engine's ancient rhythm, steady judder, and the small smell of old furniture, the old dog comes to life. I have little over a year to go before I'm a junior doctor, but already I feel the trust people put in me. I ask them questions, and they give me intimate answers, unflinchingly. Affairs, misdeeds, regrets, I delicately hold them all. Mould them into diagnoses I proffer to my consultants. I hold his hands as the retired doctor prepares for chemo. He looks up at me for reassurance. I squeeze tighter. I listen as a woman tells me she has months to live. Her husband's face tenses. Pained. It hangs low. I dedicate my break time to looking into palliative care. My textbook is dotted with tear marks. So many have died recently, and I have felt so useless. COVID-19 has scorched communities, scarring countries like the bushfires did to Australia. Political calamity is divisive, spurring national infighting. Children are starving during a pandemic, while ethnic minorities are fighting to simply matter. I'd hoped to welcome you into better circumstances. I want justice. I want healing. I want a world as hungry for equality as they are for dominance. I slow into my parking spot. In the midst of despair, I remember I can't lift the world, but I can lift where I stand. I look forward to lifting you up to reach your dreams. Suddenly, my world is all right. I can't be everything to everyone, but I can be something to someone. I double check I've got everything and rapidly open the glove box to find my stethoscope smiling at me. I wondered where Dad had gone. I'm greeted by Annabelle at the door, proffering a crisp blue mask and hand sanitizer. I smile. She can't see it, but I think she smiles back. I have crossed another threshold. My home, away from home. Even in lockdown, our voices cannot be shut down. Our actions ripple, albeit subtly. As humanity ever incessantly grinds at the limits of possibility, so must I donate my might with all my might, hoping one day, not far from now, I will save lives, and you can be proud of me. Love always, your NHS Dad.
Dear Lockdown, you've not been so bad, though you've been one long moment suspended and dangled over the city. A spring and summer gone, traded in for the worst seasons. Every hint of opening brims with optimism that seems undeserved. Just 4, 5, 6 months ago, we watched China through hazy screens, were shocked by Italy while still being relieved that this wasn't happening to us. Lockdown, you cause envy of all the other countries for whom time has resumed, while we still watch shops through queues that spill into the high street. The thing I miss the most is being able to wander around the streets, wind my way through them without a purpose. My world's not my room anymore. It's not been that bad for months, but I only leave the house to shop. I thought I'd have tons of time to catch up on all the things I'd missed. Culture that can be consumed at home, reading in the garden. But work has swallowed my time, made it disappear. It feels as though I'll emerge from this with nothing to show for it. As though I've not survived. But that's what I've got to show for it. That's what we've all got for sitting inside, the chance to come out of this alive. We must remember those who were forced to work and all the lives lost of those who caught the virus before we were told to stay indoors, and indeed after their names turned to figures. We must commend those who during a pandemic took to the streets to protest the injustices and inequalities seen in today's society, made more apparent by what's been happening. Without urgent action, these inequalities will only grow as Britain continues to leave you locked down. We must all continue the work we started during this worst of times. Lockdown, you were terrible. I've missed my friends and my family. But you are not a prison, and when the doctors and nurses tell their stories, I hope Parliament will listen.
Dear, my dedication. Some 6 months ago, when blooming spring rose past the cold soil and set my hand in motion, I sat happily with my friends beside me. The air between us was warm, like the summer we'd never have. Kept close to our skin as we leant against classroom walls, shoulders pressed together. Sharing, I think, warm cappuccinos to ward off what little wintry spell had choked its way through the brightening sky. Whispers of a far-off storm kept clear through our silly remarks and happy laughs. We wrote, not knowing, all of our experience, our work and our hope into little blinking documents that would never find themselves completed. There were a lot of things to do, work and study and applications for anything and everything that could take us to our futures. Little did we know? Because when time paused like that blooming spring had forgotten its way to summer, our futures too forgot that every day was still a day in our lives that fell forwards into the wind. And the breeze that took them stayed unforgiving of our crumbling teenage years. But it was fun. It was exciting. Weeks could fly and we were happy to see them leave, to feel the break in pressure as every responsibility charmed itself into vanishing. We'd been so busy preparing for so many necessary things, that to hear our empty schedules from our empty rooms was a breath we could take with us. Somewhere in that timeless void, where the seasons disobeyed the days, I'd watched burn out like flames. It became so easy to just stop. Because as I sat alone in a cool kitchen with a churning laptop flush against the counter, I could see clearly my friend sat across from me, video outlines pressed together whilst I stayed apart. Blinking documents shut their eyes, and I closed my writing fist. Lessons too far away to attend, left absent as June fell into July. Work and study and applications for some delayed future could wait. I decided. Because if it wouldn't come then, there was no reason for me to go. Hobbies, too, such fickle things. I left them with the spring. With nothing to do or see or say to help the time return, it kept on its way. Yet somehow, as the seasons return, as autumn rears its head, I sit again in a classroom with friends whose 2 meters I cannot tread. Timelessly, the world has changed and expected me to as well. Deadlines come and I still don't go because I think I've lost the reason. If everything can stop at will, why would I stay in motion? Sincerely, a student.
Hello there, my name is Darren Simpson. I am a Nottingham-based children's author and I wrote this book here, Scavengers. And this is just a very quick video from me to say hello and I hope you're all okay. This is a letter that Emma Sporton sent in, which I think really sums up what's great about this initiative. So I've just a couple of short extracts from it here. I've rambled about all sorts now. When I started this letter, I hadn't realised how much I actually had on my mind. It's nice to get it out really and hopefully let people know they aren't alone. And going forward a bit, it's probably best that we all try to learn from each other right now, even though it's difficult. And maybe don't forget that this really is very difficult. And if you're struggling, there isn't a better excuse than that. So I think the important point there is about writing a letter is just such a therapeutic process. It's like having a conversation with yourself, which can be really healthy because right now we're all having a pretty hard time. And that's kind of the silver lining of this, is that we're looking inwards at ourselves and seeing what's important to our lives. We're maybe admitting to ourselves where we're vulnerable in terms of mental health and that kind of thing. So it's a really healthy exercise to write a letter to, explore yourself, perhaps admit some things and deal with some things.
Hello, my name's Georgina Wilding and I chose Nina's letter because it really spoke to the experience I've had with education and finding a path to your future and your career and your life not being a straight, narrow, easy path. Nina's letter really resonated with everything I've been through and made me feel nostalgic somehow to the journey that I've been through, and I wanted to add another voice to Nina's beautiful words to say that what she's saying is very, very true and very, very valid, and I wish all of you in the position of being a graduate this year or in the next coming year the best of luck, and it will truly be fine. So, dear pupils and recent graduates, I wanted to start this letter with writing about the immense pressure that comes with being in your final year and finishing school. But much more important is to start with this. It's going to be okay, you're going to be fine. And I know that's easy to say, and yes, even though it is easily said, it doesn't mean that things at times aren't tough until they all work out fine. And trust me, you will be fine. Just hang in there. This was a very troubled summer to finish school. Do you get asked a lot about what you want to do after school? Or did you not get to do what you wanted to do because of the exam results fiasco, or because your plans to travel have been destroyed? My sister is in her final year now as well, and when we speak about school, I get thrown back to all the pressure that mounted on us from every side when I was in my final year. Do you study enough? What are you going to do after school? Where have you applied? This is going to be so hard. Brace yourself. I very vividly remember being in the same situation. Everybody make it sound like this is the most important decision in life, the thing that will define the course of your working years until retirement. But this, from my own experience, is simply wrong. Whatever happens now will not define you. You can change direction at any time. Don't listen to all the voices that tell you otherwise and make you doubt yourself. Your parents are worried about your future, but what they advise you at the end of the day says more about their own outlook on life than about yours or your ability and grit to make things happen. Having a perfect CV matters less than you think. If you are able to convey enthusiasm and are willing to invest in work, that counts more than many fancy-sounding internships on a sheet of paper. Don't lose yourself trying to optimise yourself for a specific role or profession. If you try to stick with following things that you enjoy doing or see a purpose in, you will take one step after the other naturally. You'll look back in a few years and there'll be a trajectory, a thread that links it all up. Maybe you sit there now and think, I'm okay at things, but there's nothing I really excel at. The truth is, most of us don't have that one thing we are better in than everyone else, and that is fine. People are much needed that are good at several things so they can manage, bring together, and mediate between different areas. Maybe you currently have no idea what you want to do and don't see how there could possibly be a thread one day. Think about the things you truly care about. Not necessarily fields like biology, but also skills and mindsets. Do you like bringing people together? Or really dig yourself into something and don't let go until you get to the bottom of it? Are you good at planning? Maybe you like logic. Are you observant and notice tiny details? Or does it make you happy to do something that has an impact, for example? What I want to say is that you have skills you possibly don't even think of because they are not subjects that are taught in schools. Trust me, there are many things you are really good at which you don't see about yourself. Many things are also simply up to chance and luck. Maybe you chat to somebody on a train station who wants to partner with you or hire you. And maybe you move to a new city and suddenly you become involved in new hobbies that will influence you. You never know, and that is okay. Go with the flow. And this will help you get to where you want to be. Maybe you find a subject or field that you discover you love, or change course along the way and find out that there's something else that you are better suited for. In which case, the thread is your pursuit of what fulfills you. It's all okay. Nobody really knows what they're doing, and we can only make an educated guess. The paths that aren't perfectly straight and smooth are usually the more interesting ones, and you may well carve out a life for yourself that is a bit unconventional, but fulfills you. In any case, don't worry too much about it now and don't stress. I was extremely anxious when I was in my final year 7 years ago because I desperately wanted to get it right, but nobody came and handed me a recipe for success. Well, guess what? It all worked out fine so far. My thread is that I love art and history, and this has guided me since I finished school because I just didn't let go, and it didn't let me go. I've had good and bad days and successes and failures. There are fascinating people I met and wonderful places I've been that made me find out more about myself and what really matters in life. I fulfilled my dream that I've had since I was young to move abroad to the UK. Here, now, I can look around and see many little things that make me very happy and proud of myself. That I've come so far, and I'm working to make my dreams come true. Looking back, I could have saved myself the anxiety and just had a little more faith that it would all work out. And this will be the same for you. It's a bit of an overquoted concept, but if you do something that makes you happy, and that at best adds value to your own and other people's lives, you'll do it well, and that will guide you. All the best. Nina.
Oh, I'm just moved by those beautiful, powerful letters and readings. Thank you so much to Dan and to Matteo, Emily for reading Abby's letter, to Darren for reading Emma's letter, and to Georgina for reading Nina's letter. And as a parent, Nina, I'm listening to your very wise words, so thank you. Now I'm really excited to be chatting to Eve Makis, who was the chief editor on the Letters of Solidarity project. It was her job to put together all the letters for the collection. Eve is the author of 4 novels and an award-winning screenplay. Her novel, The Spice Box Letters, was longlisted for the Jerwood Fiction Uncovered Prize and translated into 7 languages. The Accidental Memoir is a life writing guide she wrote with fellow author Anthony Cropper and was published by HarperCollins in 2019. Eve teaches fiction on the MA at Nottingham Trent University, where she is writer-in-residence for the Post-Colonial Studies Centre. Hello and welcome, Eve. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. It's lovely to be with you.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'm going to launch straight into the questions, if that's okay.
Yeah,
and
that's
if
fine.
anyone watching has a question for Eve, please do pop it in the Q&A box and we'll come to those shortly. But given that I've started this event, Eve, with some context to the importance of creating safe creative outlets for young people during tough times, what first attracted you to Letters of Solidarity, and what did you hope young people would get out of the experience?
I'd just like to say, starting off, that well done to all the writers, and those readings were fantastic. And although I'm a writer by profession, I don't think I could have said, I couldn't possibly say, speak about the pandemic in such a sort of fluent and moving way as the young people did. What attracted me to the project is that it's a great idea. It's positive on all levels. The project for me ticks all the boxes. It puts writing and it puts young people at the forefront. And I think that it goes beyond the now. So it's almost like a time capsule of thoughts and emotions. And in years to come, near or far, when people want to gauge the experiences of young people during this pandemic, it's all there in the anthology. It's not only a record of the pandemic, but it also highlights the interests and concerns of young people at this point in time, whether that's about racism or the environment, or generally about job prospects. I think that the health-giving benefits of creativity are well documented. Creativity, as we know, is cathartic, it's calming, it's enjoyable, and usually you have something to show at the end of it, something that you've created, something you can share with other people. And sometimes, as is in the case of writing, that thing that you produce can help other people. Lots of young people are going to relate to the sentiments expressed in this anthology, whether they're feeling lonely or depressed, they might be on the edge, or they might be feeling very angry. We know that young people's mental health has suffered during the pandemic, and writing can also help you structure your thoughts and find a way through those sort of problems. And we saw in a lot of the letters that they did have a structure. So they began with the problem, the explanation of the problem, and they reached a solution, or they expressed hope of, for a better future. I mean, the letters aren't all bleak. There's lots of humour and optimism. But I mean, I think just listening to those readings, there is every reason there why I got involved in the project, because it's just great to hear young people express their feelings.
It really is. It was just immensely powerful to hear their voices and to read the letters. Could you give us some insight, Eve, to how you went about choosing the letters for the anthology? What was the process that you went through?
Well, I can't really take credit for that, because we had a team of young people who did they helped me to edit the anthology, and they also selected their favourite pieces. So they all selected a number of pieces that went in the book, and they also had editing duties. I want to say at this point, I want to say how good it was working with them. They were all serious, they were professional, they met the deadlines that I set them, and I think that they all came away with skills that they can use in other similar projects. In terms of which letters were chosen, or which letters they chose, I think there were different reasons. So some of the editors related to the letters on a personal, very specific level, because they'd experienced similar things, or it could have been the quality of the writing, or the way that the emotions and the thoughts were expressed. So there wasn't one reason for choosing a letter, there were lots of reasons. The first letter in the anthology, for example, which was chosen by Molly, one of our editors, it seemed to encompass what the anthology was about, or what it appeared that sort of most young people were writing about. So it talked about the pandemic taking a toll on mental health. It talked about how the people of Nottingham came together to show solidarity, and it expressed hope for a better future. And that was the title of the letter, and that became the very fitting title, I think, for the anthology. I'd also like to say that many of the letters were very philosophical. I felt that the young people were sort of wise beyond their years, and there were themes and ideas that recurred. And one of those was about how these big changes could also bring about opportunities for growth. A lot of young people felt that very profoundly. So we had letters, for example, about how life has slowed down and there's less pollution, and how perhaps in the future this was an opportunity to think about the environment differently. So that was something else that sort of jumped out at me from the letters.
Yeah, and not going back to how things were. Yeah, brilliant. We have a question here from Yerani, and I think it also relates to a question that I was going to ask you, which was around your recommendation. What would you recommend to our contributors? What would they go on to next if they are to keep on writing? Where would you suggest they go? What would you suggest they do? And is there a potential route to getting published in other ways?
That's a really, really big question. I think you've got to start small. I think you've got to just go out and buy yourself a notepad and just start writing. Whatever it is that you want to write about and whichever form you want to write in. We talked about the sort of health-giving benefits of writing. And, you know, if you think of writing as a medicine, you know, like all medicines, it needs to be taken regularly. So think about writing for 20 minutes a day. That's all it takes. If you're writing to feel better or to sort of for your own sort of well-being, 20 minutes is enough for it to be calming, to reboot the mind, to focus the mind, to help you sort of work through your troubles. It's almost like solving a jigsaw. That's been my personal experience. Now, if you want to become a professional writer, clearly you can't do that without spending a lot of time writing. It's not always fun. It can be hard, it can be a headache, but that's part of the challenge and it's part of the joy. So it depends what you need. It depends what you know, if you are seeking inspiration, there are lots of prompts on the internet. There are lots of writing competitions that you could enter. But what I would suggest to people is try different forms. You know, you don't have to write a novel to begin with. You can write short stories. You can try writing short fiction, flash fiction. You can write poems. You can just keep a journal of your life and fill it with details that then you can use later on in your writing. But if you do decide to attempt a novel, don't think of it as a great big mountain to climb. Just write a little bit every day, paragraph by paragraph, chapter by chapter. And the other thing that I will say is there isn't one way to write. So there isn't one way to sit down and write. So some writers sit down, plan meticulously, they have a structure before they start. Other writers write in a sort of messier way. Their stories evolve, and that's fine too. So you need to find your own way, but you can only do that by writing.
Thank you so much for sharing those brilliant tips. I hope they've been useful and helpful to everybody. And thank you for joining us this evening, all the way from Cyprus. But Zoom makes it all possible.
I will be back soon.
Thank you, Eve. Over to Leanne.
Hello, and yes, that was wonderful, wasn't it? Thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, Eve, for that really interesting talk about the editing process. Now, as Eve mentioned, there were 10 young volunteer editors on this project, and now we have a short video from one of our volunteer editors, Darren Simpson, talking about the editing process.
Hi everyone, my name is Darren Simpson. I am in my first year of studying English at the University of Nottingham, and I have had the absolute pleasure of working with the Nottingham City of Literature on their Letters of Solidarity campaign. As a volunteer editor, I helped edit the Letters of Solidarity anthology, working alongside 9 other volunteers. My role consisted of reading all of the letters submitted, discussing and debating all of the letters to decide which one should be included in the anthology, and then editing the chosen letters. My favourite letter was to my unborn son, because it was such a heartfelt and emotive letter, and I think it really shines a light on all of the struggles that frontline workers experience that we have no idea of. And another letter that I really enjoyed was about the Sainsbury's meal deal, because when I'm having a bad day, I like to buy myself a meal deal to comfort myself. So I really related to that letter, and it was a really unique and funny concept. From this role, I was able to meet so many hardworking and creative young people and really help make a difference and involve myself in the community.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Daria, for that. And thank you to all 10 of our young volunteer editors, who I am going to hopefully pronounce all their names correctly now as I thank them. So thank you to Anna Friel, to Callum Room, to Daria Patarak, to Emma Sterland, to Krishan Ganatra, to Maria Law Colburn, to Katie Moore, to Molly Whitford, to Rajuta Lutcher Gardu, and to Zoe Nevin. Thank you all so much for all your hard work in editing the anthology. Now I'm delighted to introduce our final section of videos of people reading some of the letters from the collection. So thank you to contributors Ureni and to Beatrice Monroe, and also thanks to volunteers Jasbinder Bilan and Rory Waterman, and somebody that you might recognise, there's one from me, who are reading some of their favourite letters from the collection. Here we go.
Hello everyone, I'm Jerry, and my letter will be about me realizing what was important to me thanks to the pandemic. It's dedicated to my best friend. I hope you guys like it. Dear Fred, you have been my security blanket ever since I moved to England from New York City in 2018. You showed me how to take transportation around Nottingham and explain why everyone seemed to queue for everything, which is so unlike Americans. I became complacent, stopped showing you just how much I appreciate you. After all, I was making new friends at school now, and while we had our movie nights whenever time would allow, I was the one that usually ended up having to apologize. Sorry, last minute shift at the care home, or sorry, but I ended up signing up to Excerpt, which will have X support in person, and you know that I need to network for my career. Rain check? These became normal words to leave my lips when dealing with you. I'm a New Yorker. We learned from early on that if we aren't busy, then we're being lazy, and that's just not acceptable. Our worth is only as high as our to-do list. When I wasn't in lectures, I was running to do 14-hour shift in order to make money to pay for my tuition and rent. Food was a luxury, water becoming my best friend. I can still recall when lockdown came to England. At that time, I had started feeling unwell and didn't have the strength to go out and stack up on food. My depression also decided that I wanted to come back to haunt me, and my motivation was dead. I would spend hours staring blankly at my walls with too many thoughts in my head. And then you started FaceTiming me. In your usual Fred-like manner, you greeted me with sarcasm, which is what makes us such great friends. But then you saw I wasn't feeling too well. And from that day on, you made sure to FaceTime me every single day. I checked. It was the little bit of interaction, though, that my dark mind needed after so much free time in this new world. All of my school events had been cancelled. I couldn't go to work due to my compromised immune system, and all of my international friends had ran back to their country at the first hint of the scary virus. Thanks to you, I got the energy to fix my room, to wake up early and do my morning routine of smoothies and meditation. By 5 p.m., as always, you would FaceTime me with a smile on your face and tell me a story or another about something that happened throughout your day. It gave me the strength to actually help my flatmate turn our living room into a gym and movie room. I was also able to work on my YouTube business and deal with the stress of online learning. Whew. I'm so grateful that by June, when you found out I had a business plan to write, but I just didn't have the motivation because the future felt so uncertain, you dragged me out of my house, sat me down on your couch where you work, and had me write my business plan. The next day, you drove me to Heathrow Airport since I needed to go back to America, a mixture of circumstance, from my brother getting sick to me not being able to pay rent anymore because I didn't have a job thanks to the pandemic. I couldn't tell you then, looking at you from the passenger side, that I'm so grateful to have such an amazing friend like you. I mean, how did someone as aloof as me ended up meeting someone as kind as you? I can still remember the look you gave me the last time we saw each other face to face. We were unsure if I would ever come back to Nottingham. Every country was in lockdown mode. You waved at me. I waved back with my face mask already on. You were told that you couldn't go inside with me. Only passengers are allowed inside airports. Once more, I began to lose contact with you. A 5-hour time difference would do that, I suppose. You still called whenever you could, checking up on me, asking me how things were in America. After living in England for 2 years, coming back to my country was a bit of a shock. People walked around with their face masks on, but there didn't seem to be any super strict rules like in England. Times Square was no longer packed with tourists, and all the businesses were closed. Was this how we would live from now on? Afraid of physical contact? It felt as if the world was now seeing what was inside my germophobic mind. And a month after moving to New York, I got the news. The place that I had lived in for a year was raising rent and had a 12-month contract. I could not afford the new rent asked of me, so I needed to move out quickly. I reached out to you, panicking, explaining what happened and saying how I would have to find a new place to live in, but didn't know when I could do that. You casually offer your office space to me. Rent at your place would be much more affordable, and I only have to share it with you. When you did that, I wanted so badly to break down and cry, to tell you how grateful I was to have an amazing friend like you, and tell you how much I love you. But instead, I simply said thank you, and wondered if you really wouldn't mind living with me for the next 8 months. A few weeks later, things became more tense. You ended up having to move out my things to your place all by yourself while working your 9-to-5 job from home, all without complaining to me, telling me that it was alright. While I stressed and panicked, you handled the whole situation calmly. Thanks to you, I didn't become homeless. I have a place to go back to when school starts, and I even look forward to it. This pandemic, it brought us back together. It taught me who were my real friends and who were the people that just wanted to use me. This letter is to let you know how grateful I am to call you my friend. It's not much, and I don't think that a lifetime of telling you how grateful I am will be enough. But it's a start. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being my best friend.
Hi, I'm Beatrice Monroe, and this is my letter of solidarity. When I thought what a letter of solidarity might entail, I was struck by the enormity of such a task. I cannot possibly hope to encompass a universal experience. So, I will stick to what I know and hope that my individual experience might be enlightening. Lockdown was in equal parts anxiety to calm. It was like strong squash, more enjoyable than it had any right to be, but nevertheless pungently overpowering. I am now in my last year of school, and so watched this year's exam results fiasco with trepidation. Autumn brought the tumult of students returning to university, where I hope to be next year, and that only increased my fear and anxiety. Returning to school has been a blessing, however. I've been reminded of a useful mantra: worry about what you can control. Do not fret about what you cannot. Thus, I am in the process of creating a Zen-like state in an attempt to salvage my mental health as the days draw in. But I do not entirely fear the longer nights. Waking up to a dark window in the morning has its magic. Walking to school under a rising sun wondrous. The brisk and still air of winter I also relish, rosy cheeks and ruffled hat hair being the marks of a good walk. I also enjoy seeing the world at night, despite how afraid of it I am sometimes. Everything is set in a mellow light. Sepia tone renders it magical. Nighttime walks have become a fixture to banish my grown-up night terrors. In solidarity, I offer my story, my experience, and my hope for the future. Nottingham will always be a love, its people unique. So, I've raised my cup of squash in solidarity, tentative, but not fearful of what is to come. Thank you.
Hello, this letter is by Emily, aged 16. Dear me, if you are reading this, then today's date is the 22nd of March 2020, and you are preparing for your upcoming GCSE exams. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister will announce a national lockdown to fight the recent COVID-19 pandemic and reduce the spread of the virus. So I thought I would offer you some advice for the next couple of months, because like it or not, life as you know it is going to change. Whilst we're on the topic of change, which ironically was the brief for your drama exam, one thing you will notice right off the bat is the amount of spare time you're about to receive. A whole 6 months of it. I know it sounds like a dream come true, but it can turn into a nightmare if you're not careful.
The second thing you will notice is that you will procrastinate a lot. Also, you know that hair that took you so long to grow out and that you said you would never cut off? One missed hair appointment ended up with you cutting your hair twice and then colouring it 14 times. So have fun with that. Was it worth it? I'll let you figure that one out on your own. Even though this lockdown period is good for you growth-wise, you miss out on one of the most important things in your life, your friends. Suddenly you go from seeing your friends every day of your life, going to dance for hours and constantly being surrounded by people who you adore with your whole heart, to lying on your bed in your room alone. The plans you made for the next 3 months of your life are completely derailed. Your GCSE exams get cancelled, your motivation drops and you find yourself in the place you most feared you'd end up. After a while, the distance from your friends becomes too much and you find yourself replying later and making people you talk to for hours on end into complete strangers. And that's okay. One thing you learn to accept is that life isn't always perfect and it isn't always sunshine and rainbows, and that's okay. Remember, this isn't the end of the world that people will make it out to be, but if everything starts to get too much and you start to feel overwhelmed, think about this time in your life as a transition, a new beginning. You won't know what it is. As I'm writing this now, I'm not sure I do either, but we will get through this together, no matter what happens. Sincerely, me. P.S. Don't message your ex, because you will get hurt, and make sure you let go of people who are holding you back. Your heart will thank you later.
Hi, I'm Jesmynda Billen. I'm the author of Asher and Spiritbird and Tamarind and the Star of Ishtar. And I'm absolutely delighted to be involved with the Letters of Solidarity through Nottingham City of Literature. Today I'm going to read for you a letter from my Margie. This is an imaginary letter from the person who meant the most to me, and even though I'm sure she would have written me many letters in her life, my grandmother couldn't write. And this is why, when I was asked to read a letter, I imagined what she would write to me. I can honestly say that even though my Margie passed away 27 years ago, aged 94, there's always a moment in the day when her memory returns to me as sharp and vivid as if she were right here beside me. And it's always something funny and full of life. So here's the letter. Dear Bubby, that's what she used to call me. It's been so long since I saw you properly, but I know exactly what you've been doing each day, and I'm so proud of you. Do you remember when we lived in India on the farm? You were only tiny then, so you probably don't, but I can still see you toddling out into the farmyard during the monsoon storm. The rain was lashing down in rivers from the sky and rushing in muddied torrents across the ground. I don't know what you were looking for, but I only turned away for a second, and you were gone. I chased after you and found you shivering on the very edge of the well, bawling your eyes out. I grabbed you and bundled you into my shawl, pulling you close, trying to soothe you. For so many of us, our grandparents mean so much, and in these tricky times, it can be this unconditional love that makes all the difference.
Hello. I have really enjoyed reading all of the letters, but I've chosen to read a short excerpt from the letter from Deanna, dated 25th of July 2020. We are standing together by your graveside. In my head I am saying sorry to you. Sorry, sorry, sorry. You meant more to me than a part of my routine greetings when entering and leaving your house. I'm not sure whether you can hear me or not, but I hope you do know this. This is individual and personal, but it's also universal. How many of us have felt like that recently, or something like it, when someone we love has died perhaps, or just because we haven't been able to see the people we love or haven't been able to see them as often? I have one bold claim for Deanna, and for all of the people who felt like Deanna, which is probably all of us at one point or another. I'm sure she knew. The people we love us for being our normal selves around them. That's one of the best gifts anyone can give to anyone.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, this is it. Thank you all so much for coming along and helping us celebrate the launch of this special anthology. It's been a really lovely evening and we're so happy to have had the chance to share it with you. We've had a question in about the beautiful cover design. So I just wanted to thank Kira, who's with us tonight, Kira Betts, who designed the cover for the paperback edition of this anthology, which I think you'll all agree is absolutely beautiful. And thank you to Dr. Sarah McConnell and Chris Brown at Nottingham Trent University for supporting Kira as part of this project to design the cover for the anthology. Thank you. I've got a few more thank yous to do as well, so I hope you'll bear with me, and then we'll pop a link to how you can order your copy, your free copy of the anthology. So first, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Nottingham Castle Trust for their support on this project. I expect you'll all know that Nottingham Castle has been closed for the past 2 years in preparation for a really exciting refurbishment, and they'll be reopening their doors on the 21st of June. And we've had a sneak peek behind the scenes and we're really excited about all their plans. So do check them out when they reopen next month. We would of course like to thank all the writers who contributed letters. Your words are moving, insightful and hopeful, and we're delighted to showcase your work. We are grateful to all of the young volunteer editors too for their thoughtful and empathetic editing support on the project. Thank you to Eve Makis and to Emma Wright and the Emma Press for putting together such a beautiful publication that fully celebrates the voices of the writers within it. Thanks too to Richard Brommel and to Ruby Tyler for producing the project, and a very big and special thanks to Alex Trusker at MakerMet, who keeps all the tech going tonight. Finally, we are deeply grateful to all our fantastic funders, Arts Council England, Heritage Lottery Fund, Nottingham Trent University, the Thomas Farr Charity and the Challenge Partnership. Thank you so much for allowing us to elevate the voices of young people in our city. So Leanne is going to be putting a link in the chat, letting you know how to order your free copy of the anthology for yourself or for your organisation or for your school and library. You can also read the anthology online, so if you can't wait, you can dive straight in and you'll find the link to the ebook in the chat too. Finally, don't forget to share your thoughts on the project on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. You can find us at NOTTM, City of Lit, and join the conversation using the hashtag Letters of Solidarity. Thank you all so much for coming and for sharing your comments and questions. Good night and take care.